It's been 5 years since I made my mobile workbench. After using it to do all kinds of projects, I think it's a perfect time to make a new video and talk about the functions I like most and which ones I think we could improve. I'm also going to show you some versions of this project made by users of my website, which features some interesting modifications. I'll show you an innovative way to modify this design in only a few seconds, and I'll also use this video to answer some common questions about this tool. This design is quite compact and doesn't take up a lot of space if you put it against the wall. It's easy to move around the workshop thanks to its retractable casters I installed. Like I mentioned in some previous videos, I like these kinds of casters to move and level the workbench. Also because of the stability they provide once they're locked, even though activating them is a bit fiddly. In my website's forum, you'll find pictures of other versions of this project made by users, the most notable of which being this take on it made by Marc Hongrie. In these photos, you can see Marc decided to extend the workbench's legs to the floor and used another type of retractable foot-activated casters. This way you lose the option of leveling the bench, but this won't be a problem if the floor of your workshop is perfectly level. In order to fold the outfeed table, I use folding shelf brackets. They've lasted all these years without issue, despite me using it occasionally as a work table. The only problem they have, which some of you have mentioned, is that when you deploy them, they're not exactly at a 90-degree angle. I solved this problem by using washers that serve as spacers between the bracket and the outfeed table. This is the blast gate box I made so I could connect the hoses to the table saw and the router table. It's been working without any problems all these years, but depending on your preference and your dust collector, you might not need it. Amongst the versions of this project made by other users, you'll find other ways to connect the dust collector so you can use it with this tool. Those of you who follow the construction of this project from the beginning know that this is not the bench table saw I installed initially. At first I used a lighter DeWalt brand job site saw. These shots are from the video where I showed you how to replace the saw. In this video I also replaced the original workstation tops with some hard plywood ones with gray HPL on both sides. In the description of this new video, I'll leave a link to the playlist where you can see all the videos I posted on this tool. After all these years, I still have mixed feelings about changing the saw, and my answer will be different depending on the day you ask me about it. There are two things I like more about this Axminster saw, with its induction motor and cast iron top. Thanks to this, it's quieter and more stable than the other saw. The advantages of the dual saw are that it has a bigger top, it's more powerful, and also a lot more lightweight. Thanks to this weight difference, this workstation provided more mobility. For my taste, the DeWalt saw was also more aesthetically pleasing. In the playlist you'll find another video where I made a more detailed comparison between these two saws. Another accessory I get asked about a lot is the riving knife I use with this saw. The default Axminster one is quite high and doesn't let you make none-through cuts. The truth is I ran into this issue one day and tried using the DeWalt knife. To my surprise, it was almost perfect for this saw. Finally, I bought a new one from a DeWalt spare parts online store. In these shots you can see that removing the riving knife of this Axminster saw is a bit tricky, and this process is a lot easier in the DeWalt saw thanks to a handle on its side. The fence for this design could also be improved, both for the Axminster and the DeWalt saw. With the Axminster saw, the fence bends a little when applying pressure in the back, but it's not something you'll notice if you don't do heavy projects. In its favor, I should say, I like how quickly it can be removed to cut large boards. Other users installed other kinds of fences, like Joe Sanders did. He installed a more robust fence that will surely work better than the one these two saws have. This is also the case with Valerio, who installed a precision Incra brand fence. With both fences, you'll get more accuracy when cutting, but they're relatively expensive. I used light poplar plywood to make the drawers. They slide on some dados cut on the sides. This way I made the workstation lighter and saved on metal slides. For the frames I use hard birch plywood. These shots are from one of the 8 videos I posted about its construction 5 years ago. This construction by addition system makes it easy to cut and assemble all the required parts. Plywood prices have risen significantly since I built this tool, especially birch plywood. Some users use other kinds of woods, such as foundry dyke. He used light poplar plywood to make this curious take on the project. He adapted it so he could use it with a barbecue grill. Also, Joris van den Heuvel used light plywood to make his version of the workstation. You could even use some cheaper boards. For example, my views on tech use chipboard with white melamine. Another potential board could be pine plywood, which tends to be a lot cheaper than birch. This design is perfect if you want to reduce or increase its size to adapt it to your workshop. Some of you ask me how to modify the 3D file that comes with the plans, but it's a bit complicated if you don't have prior experience with this kind of software. Today I have some news that's sure to please more than one of you. A trusted follower of my website called Murray offered his help and made an Excel spreadsheet that does all the work automatically with a single click. Thanks to this spreadsheet, you won't have to modify the 3D CAD files at all. It comes with 2 sheets. In the first one, you can modify the overall dimensions of the bench without changing the cavity for the table saw. In the second tab, you can modify the cavity for the saw. This option is perfect if you're going to use a different saw. This cell contains the original measurements of the design, and it's where we have to enter our preferences. I'm going to test it by adding 100 millimeters to the total length of the workstation. You can see how the measurements of the affected pieces change, which are marked with colors. The spreadsheet also displays the original and modified dimensions in metric and imperial units. Some cells have texts that can be seen completely. You can solve this simply by double-clicking the cell. I've included this Excel spreadsheet in the plans. If you'd already bought them, you can download them again with the updates from your user area on the website. If you'd like to see a video explaining in greater detail how to use the spreadsheet, let me know in the comments. Before we had the spreadsheet, some users had already modified their projects manually, like Miguel did. He reduced the 2 exterior drawer modules, leaving a custom width of 155 centimeters. This way, he managed to fit the workstation in this gap in his garage, under a work table. It looks like a pretty neat idea for a small garage, where tools share the same space with one or several cars. After taking the cars out of the garage, you'll only have to pull the mobile workbench out, and in just a few seconds you'll have a little DIY workshop with a work table ready to use, and a workbench with a table saw. Miguel made other interesting changes that you can see in the forums of this website. I like the choice of colors used in this design. Here we have another example made by Marco, the Instagram user you'll find under the name of The Wood Poetry. Besides reducing the size of the exterior drawer modules to make the design less wide, he also did away with the outfeed table and decided to make the workbench deeper. Marco used the same construction method to make the other workbenches adapted to his small workshop. I recommend following him on Instagram, where you can see more videos and pictures like this. He has lots of good ideas to get the most out of the available space. The router table has also gone through several changes since I made this workstation. In these clips from 5 years ago, you can see at first I made an insert plate to be used with my router's fixed base. The lifting system of this base wasn't working properly. Looking around on the internet, you can see it's a common issue with this base. In this other video, you can see that some months ago, I decided to change it and modified another plunge base I had in my workshop. I used a threaded rod to lift and lower the router from the top. I think this modification could be done in almost any plunge base. I'm going to do some testing to show you another issue I want to correct. I'll use this miter router bit and some pieces of spruce wood. The dust collection hose that goes to the fans is working properly, but the one that goes to the router cavity leaves much to be desired. You can see quite a bit of sawdust gathers here. The best solution to this fairly common problem for router tables, I think, is to make an accessory like the one Daniele Valentini did with a 3D printer. You can find Danny on Instagram with the nickname danny.creacose. He also printed out other interesting accessories we'll see later on. Just a few days ago, another user called Olivier Wiener sent me these photos. It's not the same project, but the idea could also be applied to this router table. He made an accessory that's similar to Danny's, but using plywood. Another of Olivier's interesting ideas is the cut he made on the top to collect the sawdust from the typical millings that are separate from the fence. In these millings, most of the dust shoots out to the outfit area of the pieces. I'd love to see this idea in action. In these cases, I usually use a very large and cumbersome dust hood, as you can see in this video. It's time to talk about another function of this tool, which most of the questions I received were about, the sliding carriage. I haven't stopped using it in all my projects, but after all these years, I also found some things to improve here. To slide it, I used a common miter channel. It's important to keep it clean and lubricated in order for it to slide smoothly. I use beeswax. In order to cut larger work pieces, I made a side folding table. It's another one of the functions I've been using all the time, and the system I came up with to fold the table has withstood the weight of all the pieces I cut without issue. I also installed a drawer with metal slides which supports the sliding carriage in order to cut this kind of large workpiece. The fence of the carriage is extendable, and this setup allows me to cut workpieces up to approximately 170 centimeters long and 65 centimeters wide. To slide the carriage, it's possible to use other methods such as linear guides. It's the case of this version of the Mobile Workbench made by Louis. In these photos, you can see he made some cuts in the frames in order to install this kind of guides. I'd also like to try out this sliding carriage to see how different it is from mine, but I can imagine it must slide a lot better. It might be the next improvement I make to this project. The question I get asked most is how to square the slide carriage's fence with the blade every time I need to cut pieces against the saw fence. The good thing about this design is that in these cases I can remove the entire sliding carriage. I know it's not the most elegant solution, but it is what I've been doing all this time. When I need to remove the sliding carriage's fence, in order to mount it again, I have to leave it flush with the front edge of the carriage. This method has been working pretty well so far, even though, as you might be thinking, I believe there are more precise solutions. I'm going to try to improve the way to square this fence, and in this case I'll draw inspiration from the idea of the user Daniele Valentini, who used a 3D printer to make some adjustable stops. Here you can see he used a T-slot aluminum profile and printed some accessories to secure the profile to the carriage. These are the stops I was talking about. He used a bolt to accurately square the fence with the saw blade. This way he can remove the fence when he needs to, and when he places it again, he'll always get square cuts. Since I used a different aluminum profile and I don't have a 3D printer, I can't use the exact same idea. I'm going to make some stops that I'll fasten to the front edge of the carriage. I'll use HPL, but I could have also used acrylic or hardwood. I've drawn a printable template to make all the machining processes easier. I also added this template to the plans. Now I'm going to drill 2 holes in the front edge of the carriage. One is of a larger diameter so I can insert a nut, the other is 1 millimeter less than the diameter of the bolt I'll be using. I'll use a dowel template to make these holes square. I place the bolt and a locking nut in the stop and apply some grease. Now I'll insert the bolt in its hole and also adjust the hardness of the stop stern. It looks like it turned out perfect, and these stops will also help me lock the carriage when necessary. I'm going to test this system by trying to square the fence with the blade. Looks like I have to loosen the bolt a little on the left side. The idea will allow me to continue making cuts at an angle quickly, something I do frequently with this sled and carriage. Another question I get asked often is why I use this sled and carriage if I have a table saw sled. I think both functions are necessary and supplement each other. I usually use the table saw sled to cut smaller pieces. It would be impossible to use this table to cut larger work pieces like the one I just cut with the sled and carriage. That's all for today. I hope I haven't left any of your questions unanswered. If you have any other questions that I missed, let me know in the comments. See you soon.